Serious therapists, psychologists and other mental health workers, what internet behavior do you find concerning? Comparison. One of the greatest challenges of so many young adults I work with is the over-comparison to false projections of people through social media. The interesting thing is that most can cognitively acknowledge that the comparison is unfair or inaccurate, but it doesn't change the ultimate outcome of feeling shitty about themselves. Comparison is the thief of joy was one of my great-grandmother's favorite sayings. The other was he won't buy the cow if he can get the milk for free, but that is less relevant right now. One of our fundamental psychological needs is acceptance. Unfortunately, the internet and social media in particular has made it easy to find unhealthy acceptance. In a normal practice, we work on skills to improve self-acceptance with the idea that accepting yourself will reap immense benefits: increased self-worth and self-esteem, less fear of failure, increased autonomy, and reduced anxiety. With the internet, there is a shortcut to self-acceptance, and that is finding communities that will accept you if you conform to an easy standard, post the right words, photos, and project the right image, and you will gain instant and widespread acceptance. The problem is that this flimsy acceptance doesn't improve any other part of your life, since you still lack self-acceptance, and it goes away quickly. And of course, the groups that provide the biggest, warmest acceptance are often toxic groups. Toxic fandoms, hate groups, and cults have always preyed on those with low self-acceptance. But their reach now is obviously greater, and it is simple for them to find and recruit new members. So I'm always on high alert if someone I'm working with starts using social media acceptance as a substitute for working on their own self-acceptance. My dad died last year in January before the pandemic. We flew to Vegas to help his widow clean up and just help any way we could. She went on and on about how her friends said they'd come and help her, no questions asked. We were there for a week and nobody showed up. Turns out her friends are nothing more than canon trolls with 100 reasons why they couldn't make it there in the past. But we will be there for you in the future. Now she's fully into the canon conspiracy and the part 1 hate most about it. She's using my dad's last name to sound like a ducking lunatic on the internet. Habitual scrolling is concerning. When a person cannot stop scrolling, even though they want to, it causes anxiety. It is a very addictive and harmful habit. People say it wastes time and makes them anxious, yet they just can't stop. It harms a person's sense of self-efficacy, their I can do this attitude. Any addiction hurts a person's sense of can do because they are constantly engaged in something they don't want to be. It takes time away from productive or healthy activities. I have heard people say days pass them by. I think it has gotten much worse since cover 2. Yeah, this one hits home. Do you advise people on how to deal with this? If so, what do you find to be most effective? I think many of us struggle with it to an extent. So you are definitely not alone. I would say a lot of it is accountability. If you have someone close to you who is supportive, or will even go on the journey with you, that is best case scenario. Finding new hobbies that feel fulfilling is great. Also, starting and maintaining a morning and evening routine that doesn't involve scrolling is really key. I'm big on lists. Make a small list of your ideal morning routine. Also make a list of things you have been putting off or have been wanting to do, and do one thing at a time. Just take a look at the list every day and do something to work towards it. Reward yourself for doing even something small. Giving yourself an allotted amount of time to be on social media is fine. Set an alarm for when to get off. Smile. Breathe. Scrolling can be fun, but there comes a point where it sucks our time away and we even start to neglect our basic needs. One person I talked to said they deleted TikTok because it was literally ruining their life. So there is always just deleting apps too. If that is an option for you, good luck. Social worker here. Overuse of the word addiction. Also, people putting all their identity into a mental health issue. People are more than their diagnosis. Over-identifying with a mental health diagnosis can make it difficult for the person to get help. People overusing things like depression and anxiety when they are actually sad or nervous. Same with OCD and bipolar. It makes it hard for people who actually have depression and anxiety to be recognized and get the help and support they need. It minimizes the pain people experience who have OCD and who have bipolar disorder. These things suck, and making light of it is just not appropriate. I actually had the opposite problem as a teen. I had extremely severe depression and anxiety, but just turned everything inwards because I didn't want to self-diagnose. Ended up becoming a shut-in for a few years. The irony of the situation being my anxiety and low self-esteem preventing me from getting help because there was no way that was the case. I was just useless. Online presence isn't how easy it is to hide shit from your parents, which obviously opens you up to predation. In my second year as a doctor, I dealt with a distraught 15-year-old who had made a suicide pact with a boy she met online through Overwatch. This boy never showed a picture or spoke on voice, but apparently they had become soulmates, and she sent him pics, talked to him daily, etc. Parents understandably freaked when they found out and tried to get her to cut contact. So the presumed 45-year-old on the other end said he was gonna kill himself. Seriously made me consider moving to an island with no internet when I have my kids. There is definitely been a change in norms in regards to secrecy on the net. When I was a teen, it was just normal that you never narrowed down where you were beyond country or perhaps state and didn't give out your name or details. Now it is the norm that 13-year-olds post everything along with photos of their route home from school and complaints about always having to walk it alone. It is not a good norm change. That we are replacing our deep in-person connections with surface online connections. Parasocial versus dyadic relationships. Warping our sense of beauty, happiness, and well-being to sell things. Making advertisements not seem like advertising. That we are replacing our deep in-person connections with surface online connections. With COVID, we don't have much choice right now. However, we are realizing how lonely social isolation is and how Zoom is not cutting it for kids in school. I sure hope things turn out for the better after the pandemic ends. I know it will not be perfect, but still. I find the whole echo chamber effect and people's unwillingness to engage with views that are not their own in a meaningful way troubling. It causes people to move towards tribalism, which threatens the social fabric. For instance, I have been banned from both the right-wing subreddit and the left-wing sub for simply trying to have a conversation about right and left-wing subjects. That kind of moderation may drive up usage because people's views are never challenged and they don't have to consider another person's position. In the age of social media, the profit motive has caused the death of empathy. Reality being rational is often quite mundane. Nuance, which is required to understand nearly everything, especially politics, is boring. Absolutist. Flashy one-liners are best on all social media platforms. It distorts the perception of reality for anyone spending significant time with it, even people that go in with a level of awareness. I remember joining Twitter for the first time being bewildered by it. After a few months, it starts to become the norm. Reality becomes a snoozer fest. Why would I want to read this multi-page article in 2-point font and The Economist still be confused on what to believe after? I must know if the cons or the libs are 100% right. Actually, scratch that. I already know my side. Con lib is 100% right. Why read anything? Previous case manager here. An overnormalization of mental illness. There is a large difference between having diagnosed anxiety, depression, bipolar, and feeling anxious, feeling depressed, and having some mood swings. So many have self-diagnosed because it is now so overnormalized that it is the new cool thing. It has unfortunately become little more than a means of gaining more attention and empathy. It's such a delegitimizing behavior that undermines people with actual mental health issues. Mental health conditions are not something cool or something to be sought out. They are things people struggle with daily, and when other people purposefully use them as a means of gaining attention, it becomes an insult to them and their struggles. Therapist here. I worry a lot about teen girls who are increasingly exposed to unrealistic standards of beauty and who are increasingly vulnerable to exploitation. It was bad when I was a teen back in the early 2000s, but it seems to just be getting worse. I believe so, too, because teenagers become really concerned with their bodies and physical appearance. Let me ask you, what would you consider the best way for a teen girl to understand that the shown beauty standards are unrealistic? I mean, when you think about it, most of us are able to understand this. but sometimes some thoughts are just too deeply internalized. Truthfully, I'm not 100% sure. It's such a pervasive issue among my female clients, even slightly older ones. I try to empower them, help them find their voice, and help them recognize the validity of their emotions. But no amount of complimenting can really undo what society has ingrained in them. I think as a clinician my biggest goal is to help them realize they have so much value beyond what social media is demanding of them. Just about everything already listed here, but my personal peeve is online dating. Online dating, especially the currently most popular swiping apps, completely breaks how our brains work in terms of attraction. Warning: oversimplifications ahead. Take with a grain of salt. As many others have noted, if the dating app is successful, it is probably going to lose users, so they have very little motivation to work. We automatically place ourselves on a scale of 1-10 in terms of attractiveness, and try to find someone on the same number or slightly higher, based on availability bias. Awesome. Here is a million carefully selected pictures of people who are available. Your bias gets skewed way off. People generally like one another based off shared experiences, interests, values, whatever. Great. Here is a list of a million people. Hey, you have got a 99% match, but this one doesn't like dogs, and this one doesn't support 15-hour, and this one only likes social board games. So you start getting way too picky. You have no shared experiences prior to meeting, and you make snap judgments based off highly biased limited information. Anyone who marks their profile woman is likely to get absolutely flooded with messages. Anyone marking man is likely to have to send out literally hundreds per success. Marking anywhere in between non-binary is just a complete shit show. It is sexism of the dating process turned up to 11. And it sucks for everyone involved. I listened to an podcast the other day talking about this very thing. The idea that people are becoming so picky online. It could literally be an example like you, provided and people are too quick to dismiss matches because of one thing they didn't like. These people will forever be on the hunt for the perfect match when it doesn't even exist. Online dating apps are incredibly shallow and damaging in my opinion. Women get lots of matches, but as a guy it's so soul crushing for 90% of them as they get pretty much none. It's so much better to walk up to women and talk to them in real life. You get like 1 added to your attractiveness for doing it, whereas being on an app is almost a 1. It is no wonder that the number of young men having zero sex is skyrocketing. The simplification of very serious and complex topics because of things like Twitter hot takes and those topics being funneled through memes. It makes people think they have it figured out, and then they think opposition is wrong. Deplorable. Evil. Whatever word you wanna use. Generalizations are way too common, and it does a disservice to everyone to pretend that individuals with their own upbringing and perspective don't exist. I'm just some ducking guy though. I'm not anything the title suggests. People posting several selfies a day and filming themselves singing while driving. Social media allows for unhealthy and unrealistic expectations of others, and provides individuals with unhealthy, disingenuous acceptance. It fosters a culture of the more I post, the more I will be accepted, when in reality we can work with these individuals to discover self-love and healthy acceptance. Also, filming yourself while driving is dangerous. This weird trend of pictures with text over them claiming some new mental health issue. The latest one I've seen being today I learned people with anxiety rewatch the same TV shows over and over, which led to everybody on my timeline self-diagnosing themselves with an anxiety disorder. Everybody wants to diagnose themselves and other people, but nobody wants to share resources for therapy, etc. From my perspective as a social worker, all the echo chamber groups for anxiety, depression, mental problems, where the members share a lot of private information just to be seen and heard, and they usually get the others' member solutions, which is formed through meetings with the healthcare system and personal experiences. That is scary. If people are suicidal, have severe diagnoses, or are getting into psychosis. Psych nurse here. There are a number of concerning behaviors involving the internet. The one that concerns me is seeing the way people will spend hours or days defending a topic or opinion they have. Back and forth bickering and name calling. Whereas in real life, that disagreement would have ended very quickly or not even been addressed at all. Because people don't generally disrespect others' beliefs or outlooks that way in person. It causes anxiety in both parties. Waiting for a reply, trying to come up with a smart remark, checking out from real life conversations, to be consumed by an internet argument. It is detrimental to our minds to be trolls or be dragged in by a troll. Even though every generation complains about the ones that come after them, I generally believe that every generation contains the same kinds of people. But social media is a game changer for the way we communicate. Since younger generations will have grown up on social media, I'm curious to see if how everyone acts online will eventually translate into real life. Will everyone be as quick with insults and comments in real life as they are online? I have noticed that Gen Zers seem more relaxed with how they speak with higher ups in the workplace. Not a problem, just an observation. The one thing I worry about with the next generation after Gen Z is that as everything moves to being more isolated, they might not understand social dynamics in a lot of real life situations and act as they would online. For example, if you say something in real life that you may have said online, there is a good chance you might get punched in the face. If a whole generation doesn't understand social dynamics, they will make up their own. And it's a thing that has been going on since the dawn of man. A person like me who was born in 1996 would have a less than ideal understanding of social dynamics of the 50s and would be seen as dramatically awkward, if not rebel, if I traveled back. The mimification of mental health. Making light of a diagnosis can be useful in certain contexts as a coping mechanism, but when my crippling depression has become a meme, it is not doing individuals who actually have severe depression that cripples their quality of life any justice. I'm sure in many cases it does speak to genuine mental health experiences people are having. I just think there needs to be some caution and awareness when making comments or posts about mental health that are a joke, before they are an attempt at coping. Express yourself or reach out for help. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.